Seems to have caught it very well indeed. The touch judges agree.
When that happens, I suppose the best thing you can do is call in an expert. And that's a great try from Tommy Bow.
You've got to give it a bit more grunt than that.
Okay, we'll try this. Tommy Bow! It is Tommy Bow!
Yeah, better.
Thanks, coach.
Stitch up. When your contribution to broadcasting in this country is the elongation of a vowel, you realise just how little you've achieved. It's wonderful to be with you all. You're all aging gracefully and well, and it's great to be here. I'm a salutary lesson to the BlackRock Union in not booking Craig Doyle early enough. But hopefully we shall get through the next 20 minutes or so. And of course we will, because we have three fantastic fellas here. One maybe not quite expected, but delighted that you're here, Andrew Conway. You know what I'm going to do? I'm a lot more comfortable down there. What I'm going to say to you guys and lady is to say, if there are any questions from the audience in the next 20 minutes, I'll get to that. So if you've got something you really want to ask one of the lads, please do think about that, and we'll do that over the next little while. But I am going to start on, I guess, something of a sad note, Andrew. Actually, on a personal level, must be devastating for those of us that have had the pleasure of enjoying watching you for so many years. It came as something of a shock to see you have to retire. How's the last month been? Or has it been a lot longer than a month in your world?
Yeah, it's been a lot longer for me than I suppose everyone else. I think a lot of people were shocked, and it's hard for people watching on to see someone play 1 week and 2 weeks later they're retired. And from the player's perspective, there's so much that goes into training to get long-term injuries right, and it's not necessarily black and white. What you see is different to what goes on behind closed doors. Had 2 knee surgeries, had close to 2 years now coming up of the knee issue, and that obviously, as I said, led to 2 surgeries over the last number of months, and got back to play, but the long-term damage I was doing to the knee wasn't worth it. My ability to play consistently wasn't going to be there at all. It was going to be, at the very best case scenario, 1 game on, 5 games off. That's just an example, but that's not what I want to, that's not what I want to commit to Munster, to Irish rugby. That I deserve more, they deserve more, and and listen, the decision was taken out of my hands by a surgeon.
I was just going to say that to you. Who ultimately makes that decision? Is that you saying, I just can't do this at the level I want, or is it a combination of you, your wife, the surgeon, and everybody coming to a kind of a collective decision?
Yeah, mainly a consultant. So a guy, Andy Williams, who did my knee surgery, second one over in the UK, went over to him 3 weeks ago, and he just laid it out. He just said, listen, you're doing too much damage to your knee. You're not going to be able to do what you need to do on a daily basis, and he recommends I retire, you know. So within that, obviously, he's not forcing my hand. It's not like I can say, no, I'm not retiring. And then obviously it moves into a different phase, but you got to listen to the best guys in the world, or the best guys in the UK and Ireland, and what they're advising. And when you're dealing with the long-term injury for so long, and the battle you're in every day to even just complete a training session, and then repeating that 4 or 5 times a week, and then hopefully playing a match, it's a tough spot to be in. And it felt like the time was right. I've been professional since I was 18, which is a long time. I'm 32 now. My body's given everything, and it's just not got any more to give, unfortunately.
And the final question on this, and we will move on. Psychologically, how difficult has it been, and have you fully come to terms with what I guess is kind of a mourning period?
Yeah, so Keith Earls obviously retired only a few weeks before me, and I was chatting to him before it was announced. He said, be ready to grieve for a week, 2 weeks, and I've not got that. But I've been living with this for 2 years, nearly 2 years, and within that you have so many little mini disappointments and little mini versions of processing that the end may be coming. That it's not just I went out 2 weeks ago and played a game and my knee just blew up and I get told 2 weeks later I'm done. It's been a journey. So far I'm only 2 weeks into it now, but I've not had that grieving process. But I think it's because I've given so much. I couldn't have given any more. I can look myself in the mirror knowing that I gave 100% to myself, particularly in these last 8-9 years at Munster. I didn't leave anything to chance. I didn't leave any stone unturned, and that there's a lot of pride that comes with that. So yeah, it's done now.
Do you know what? Well said. And it's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Jordy Murphy, if I can move to you. How did you find the transition? Or how are you finding the transition? Because it's not exactly 10 years you're gone either.
Well, this is my third Friday business lunch in a row, so I'm enjoying it. I suppose I'd kind of made the decision maybe a year or so out. You touched on it. I've gone into sports agency with my old agent, and we've been kind of on and off talking about it for a couple of years. So I knew it was always in the back of my mind. And maybe about a year and a half ago, I'd come through about a year of bad injuries where I was really struggling to get back. And I think I was just sitting with my wife during the summertime with one season to go on my contract, and I was thinking, yeah, this could be my last. I'm thinking I'll give it my absolute all for one more year, and then I think I'd be happy enough to hang up the boots. I've been very fortunate to have been involved with some amazing teams. I've managed to win a lot of silverware along the way, and I guess after the World Cup in 2019, I haven't been selected for Ireland since then. So I suppose, like the lads will tell you, like playing for your country is really the pinnacle of anyone's playing career, and I'd kind of realised that those days were behind me. So I was like, right, well, I'm never going to get back to there. Not because I didn't want to, because I wasn't picked. So Faz is in the audience. Thanks. But yeah, I kind of just realised it was time for me just to move on, and I was happy enough to do it. So yeah, look, it's been pretty good so far. So long may that continue.
Ian, can I go back to the beginning for you rather than at the end? When do you, and I'm interested in this from all three of you, when do you reckon you figured it out that you were damn good at this game and you were going to have an international career? Is there a point at where you go, actually, I've got it. This is. I'm going to be a pro player and I'm going to be a damn good one. Or is it something that just evolves from leaving school through to actually making your debut for a province?
Great question. I think for me, sport was always an integral part of my life growing up. So whether it was tennis, playing in Carrick Mines, swinging a golf club with my dad up in Kiltiernan, playing Gaelic football with Kilmacud Crokes, mini rugby with Belvedere, and then moving into Willow Park in first year. And then I suppose for me, the realisation of that professional sport is a job that I could go into, and kind of figuring out the pathway and also figuring out that I was potentially good enough would have been as early as the Junior Cup, when I was lucky enough, and a good chunk of the lads who played with me that year are here today, and we were lucky enough to win the Junior Cup, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the hard training that came with it, the camaraderie, and I was very lucky in Blackrock College that with Alan McGinty as principal at the time, he was able to guide the likes of Luke Fitzgerald, Dave Moore, and Niall Morris, who were the year ahead of us, and bring in guys who turned professional, the likes of Brian O'Driscoll, to talk to us and show us, look, this is a potential avenue that you could go down to be professional. And it was really off the back of coming out of third year and winning the Junior Cup that I realised this is something that I really want to do, and I'm going to give it my best shot.
I'm keen to understand, Andrew, maybe you could answer this one. We all get very emotionally engaged with what you do. Any of us that are fans from the start of the URC season through the Heineken Cup, through the Six Nations, there are varying degrees of how emotionally engaged we get. I get hugely emotionally engaged. I don't cry, Ian, but I definitely get emotionally engaged. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, how much of that are you bringing in to your career? Is there a deep emotional engagement for you, or does it become very businesslike?
I've never actually thought about it like that, to be honest.
Excellent. I asked a good question then. Or a bad question, but I asked a question.
There's an emotional level that comes with putting your body through what we put our bodies through every day and every Saturday. Some weeks the emotion is handed to you, like tomorrow, for example, for the lads on either team. The emotion will be handed to both of them with the crowd, with the jerseys that are they're going to be competing with. It's business as well, because it's a process. It's boring in the sense of what you do every day repeatedly, and how you're thinking about how efficient you can be and what your point of difference is. Very much like I'm sure what a lot of you people doing here. It becomes a business, but we've got the ability to express ourselves on a Monday and a Tuesday out in the pitch, on a Thursday on the pitch, and then ultimately in the arena on Saturday. So I think when you look at the best guys who have the longest, most successful careers, who are consistent over a long piece of time, they're able to marry the two of them together and use the emotion when it's right to use the emotion, go through that kind of business process whenever it's what you're doing first thing when you get up, how much recovery you're doing, all the kind of boring details that behind the scenes or don't get seen to necessarily people who aren't in the four walls. But whenever you're in the four walls, you see the real operators and what they're doing every day.
Well, for a guy who hadn't thought about it, that's a damn good answer. Jordy, would you agree with that? Do you find that you brought a lot of yourself into that room or onto that pitch every week, or was it very much depending on the match, on the occasion?
Yeah, I think it developed with time. I think for the first couple of years, I kind of didn't think about anything, to be honest. I was just like, oh, how lucky am I to be doing this? I wasn't expecting it at all. And as time went on, I think I started to realize the magnitude of all the games I was involved in. Like I went from, I suppose I went to the sub-academy. I was in school with Andrew and Brendan Mackin, who both played in my own 9S, and they went straight into the academy, and I went in under the radar in the sub-academy. So I always kind of had that one where I was like, oh, well, maybe I won't quite make the academy. And then it was one of those things where I played well enough that I went into the academy and then didn't get a sniff for a year and a half. And then out of nowhere, lads came back from the 2011 World Cup wounded, and I was drafted in for a couple of games, managed to do all right, but never really thought, oh, right, this could be what it's going to be like for me, like professional rugby, which is kind of weird when you're in the middle of it. It shows how oblivious I was to everything. I kind of was just I think I was more of a college student for the first 3 or 4 years. I was living the college life anyway. But yeah,
but you enjoyed it, right? Like you were enjoying every second of it.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. Like I didn't think about it too seriously, and I absolutely loved that part of it. Next thing, you'd have 20, 25 caps for your province and getting called into Irish squads, and everything was just a bonus from there on. But as the career went on, I definitely think when you become a bit more senior and you want to start giving a bit of knowledge out to the other lads, you really need to start thinking about it on a broader scale. And I always tried to make it where it was just like whenever I played my rugby, it was about my rugby, and whenever I was out of there, I could switch off and kind of have family time or spend time with friends. And I think I've gone on a tangent and I'm lost.
No.
Anyway.
It's a good tangent. It's a good tangent. Ian, if you could pick that up, that separation of Ian Madigan, player, well known, go out for dinner anywhere and you're going to probably be asked for a photograph or an autograph or all the rest of it, and then being able to have that personal time with your family and your friends and just be who you are. Was that ever tricky for you? Ever something you struggled with?
No, I didn't struggle with it, and the reason why I didn't struggle with it was I was given some good advice early on in my career that you'll make a lot of great friends playing professional rugby in the different clubs you'll play for, whether it was solely Leinster or the other clubs that I played for, and I did make great friends. But the advice that I was given was, look, your school friends will be your friends for life, and that is something that has definitely been true for me. And in the initial, Nice.
Some of them are obviously here.
Yeah.
Go on.
But like in the initial, college years, it was very different for me because I didn't experience the college life that they would have, because you're tied into the professional game at 18, 19. And then in the earlier years when they're working, I would have been the one organising dinners and bringing us together, and that's come back in spades. And the support that I had, especially through the dips in my career, having my friends and family to fall back on was really crucial.
And what about learnings from your playing days that you're now, and maybe you're a little bit further down the road, definitely than Andrew, in terms of where you are in your transition into what we'll call normal life. Have you been able to take stuff? There's always that conversation that you hear about you taking stuff from your playing days and bringing it into your business life. Is there a reality in that, or is that a fiction from your experience?
No, there is a reality, and there is also a fiction. One thing I'd say is, like, you do get said to as a professional athlete, people say, oh, there's so many transferable skills, it'll be seamless for you when you get into the real world, into the business world. The reality is it's not seamless. It's actually really difficult, and there's lots of traits that you have as a professional athlete that actually hinder you when you go into the business world. So, for example, as a professional athlete, you're always just staring down the barrel of the day in front of you, and you're dealing with a lot of kind of performance anxiety. You're pushing your body to the absolute limit every day, every week in games, and you rarely look past the game that's that weekend. Like the guys that are playing tomorrow in Leinster v Munster, they're not looking to see who they've got in 2 weeks' time. But when you move into the business world, you've got a plan for the week in front of you, the quarter, hitting a half-year target, and that was definitely a real challenge for me when I moved into data ships. What I was lucky with was the sense that I knew in the last 2 years, the writing was on the wall for me. I was only playing for Ulster a handful of times. That wasn't going to continue for me. So I was able to work part-time, and I've been very lucky that I'm working in a company called Data Ships, which is founded by two of my classmates from the year 2007, and I was able to work part-time while I was playing with Ulster, and I've been able to transition into a full-time role with them, and that's not a privilege that many other professional players would have had, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Ryan, our co-founder, is here today, so thanks for that, Ryan.
Nice. Don't worry. There are a number of people who struggle with performance anxiety in here as well, but that's got to do with their age. Andrew, if I could, sorry, speaking for myself clearly. Andrew, let's talk about the World Cup, because we need to just finish this one out for a lot of people. You obviously were an onlooker like the rest of us. There was a difference this time. I know everybody talks about going out at a quarterfinal, and it is yet another exit at a quarterfinal. But there is a different tone and hue and feel about this, isn't there, to what's happened before? What was your overall assessment of what happened out there?
It's so tough for the lads. You know, I from speaking to them, it's one that's going to take a long time for a lot of them to get over, if ever, from a professional standpoint. There's 4 teams that are the best 4 teams in the world by a distance, and that's not England, that's France, obviously. And on any given day, you know, Ireland are going to beat New Zealand, New Zealand are going to beat South Africa. The next week, France are going to beat Ireland, South Africa are going to beat New Zealand. And unfortunately for us, it came in a quarter-final. You know, we went 13-0 down. Usually you go 13-0 down against New Zealand, you lose by 40 points. The lads came back to within a point, and there wasn't one moment of that game that I wouldn't have put my money on Ireland. Honestly, because of what I've seen Johnny Sexton do multiple times, because of what I've seen that team do, you know, multiple times in recent memory, I fully believe they'd win. And you know, they got beaten by a team that are as good as them. You know, I still think Ireland have an edge on New Zealand, and I suppose we'll see over the next 4 or 5 years. Johnny Gowan does create something different, but gutted for them as a whole. The country deserve more, they deserve more, and obviously you don't get what you deserve, but it's a particularly tough one to take.
Jody, would you agree, having talked to some of the players since they've come home, is that the general consensus, one of sick to the stomach and opportunity lost?
Yeah, I think so. I'd echo what Andrew said there. Like, even chatting to a couple of lads, like, I think they said just in the change room after, like, there's been change rooms where you've lost games and you thought, oh, fair enough, or maybe they went into a game thinking, look, it's 50-50, but they genuinely believed that they would get through and they would get to the final and they'd win the whole thing altogether. So I think it was a bit of disbelief straight after, and it's taken a lot of them a long time to get over that, and some of them may never be able to kind of right that wrong. That might be their last World Cup, which it will be for a number of the lads, but I think it's a strange one, because never, like, well, certainly in the times that I played, or as long as I've seen Ireland in the World Cup, I don't think there was ever that kind of collective belief between not just the team. Like, you hear sometimes the team believes, like, that they'll be able to do the unimaginable, but now that everyone watching on was thinking, right, this is Ireland's time to kind of to fall short at that hurdle, especially a quarter final again, was tough to take.
How tricky is it then to come back and play effectively URC, Heineken Cup, and back to Six Nations and get back on that treadmill? And it feels like there's got to be some sort of psychological hangover, no matter how professional you are.
Yeah, there's going to be a massive hangover, and you know the 2019 World Cup for me, I watched, and I was kind of a small bit bitter. I would have liked to have been there. Felt like I was potentially good enough to have been there, but the 23 World Cup I was very much watching as a supporter, and was obviously gutted after that quarter final, and then the following week to have seen, you know, Argentina, New Zealand, I ended up being far more disappointed after that, because I was like, well, we definitely would have made the final. And then it was like that disappointment was doubled again after the final, because you're looking at that match going, we definitely could have beaten these two sides again. And that hangover drags into the URC, and there definitely has been a bit of a hangover with the competition so far. What I'd like to think is with Leinster-Munster tomorrow, that's going to be a kind of line in the sand. Hopefully we'll see a great rugby match tomorrow. It has been a match that the rivalry hasn't been there as it was in the past, whether it's been, you know, full strength teams being picked, or the actual competitiveness of the games hasn't been there because Leinster have been dominant. But with Munster winning the URC last year, that certainly changed that. So hopefully that's going to start getting the momentum back into Irish rugby.
Absolutely. If anybody has a question they want to ask, please just raise your hand and I'll make my way to you. The first one's always the shy one, except there's somebody down there who's not shy, is there? Is there anybody down? No? Okay, I'll come to you in a sec. Let's while I'm meandering my way down here, let me ask you about playing against your colleagues and friends, because you see all these guys that are playing tomorrow, and they were all in France with each other for 6 and 8 weeks and 3 months pre-camp, and a lot of them are buddies. How difficult is it to, Andrew, to go back down and play for Munster against Leinster, having played alongside those guys in an Irish camp weeks and months previously? Did you find it tricky?
You get used to these things, you know. It's just the nature of how the competitions are designed. If anything, it's good, you know. You like going out and playing against people you're close with, and And unfortunately, playing for Munster over the last decade, we've not gotten on the right side of that fixture much, but it's still enjoyable. Playing against, lads who you're rooming with, lads who you're spending the evenings with. Obviously, you're in all day training with them. But it adds an extra bit of spice, and you'll see that tomorrow, like you see nearly every time, regardless of what the result will be. There's something extra about it, and that's the same when Connacht are playing Ulster. Obviously, it's a bit more honed in on when it's a Munster-Leinster match, but it's like anything, you just get used to these things and you crack in.
Okay, first question.
Just to build on that slightly, all three of you have had the experience of changing province within the country. Was it difficult to change the mindset, and was there a lot of abuse? Friendly abuse, but abuse in the early days.
It wasn't difficult for Andrew anyway. Apparently he was Munster blood through and through from day one, so I don't know what he was doing for 3 or 4 years at Leinster before.
It was very tough for me to be in Leinster at the start.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I want the three of you to answer kind of briefly. I'm just keeping an eye, and I'll come around then. Ian, start with you. The moment in your career that you remember most for you. Not because we remember it, but because it meant something to you. It could have been, I don't know, a training session or a wet Tuesday in Bristol. I don't know what, but is there a moment that stands out in your career that was very special to you, for you?
Yeah, I suppose for me, like throughout my career, I never kind of had the full reins, and it was the same for me. When I was in school, I had a great competition with Dara Fitzpatrick, one of my best friends, and that carried through to when I broke into the Leinster team. I never felt like I had the full reins of the organisation that Johnny would have had, and I was always very kind of envious of that, and that continued through to when I was playing for Ireland, and that ultimately culminated in the World Cup. In 2015, and when I got that opportunity to come on and cover for Johnny, that kind of outpouring of emotion that you saw at the end, it was a kind of personal realization that I actually am good enough to play at this this top level of a World Cup, and yeah, that was kind of definitely a realization in my career that I can kick it at this level. So
absolutely. Jordy, you're next. Same question.
I think mine would be the first test against South Africa in 2016. We went down there with a couple of, I suppose, key or star players missing. I'd played the World Cup the year before, but then got dropped for the Six Nations after because just wasn't playing well enough, in fairness. And it took me, that was a pretty big hit to my ego, I suppose, at the time. I didn't realise it. So it took a lot to get back, and I started to play relatively well towards the end of the season, and then a couple of things fell into place, and I got brought in that tour, and we played South Africa down under, and we ended up winning when we were down to 14 men for 60 minutes of the game. And my dad was in the crowd. He usually would, he'd fly to Russia to come to South Africa. That's the way he'd do his trips. Find the most ridiculous flights. But anyway, he made it on time for the game, and I just remember him being there after the game in Newlands, I think it was Newlands, in Cape Town, and it was a special day. So
nice. Andrew?
Very similar to Ian, playing South Africa, 2017, I think, in a November test, and there's always doubts when as you're going up the levels. Can I do it at this level? You watch rugby. You watch New Zealand play, you've never played against New Zealand, you think, I'm good enough to play against England, but maybe not New Zealand and maybe not South Africa. And played against South Africa, we gave them a hide, and to be fair now, it wasn't the best South African team. But during and after the match, feeling like I'm good enough, I'm able for this and I can actually excel at this isn't just an isolated day. It's a whole experience of your career leading into that, and it took me a long time to get there. I was 25 when I made my debut, which is different to the boys, so I had a lot of baggage, for want of a better term, to get there mentally, and to get there and excel and feel like I'm able to live at this level was unbelievably satisfying.
Super answers, thank you. Anybody else got a question? Excellent. I'll make my way down here. Very good.
if there was any law of rugby or facet of rugby that you would change, what would it be and why?
Good shot.
It's a great question. I think at the moment it's very topical with the head injuries, and we've got this class action coming out, which is I'm not sure if people in the room have read the article from last weekend, but it was made for grim reading. For me, it is an area that I'm passionate about. There has been some good law changes to make the game safer. For me, for the onus to be solely on the defender to avoid head contact, that for me needs to be changed. There needs to be an onus on the attacker to avoid head contact as well. We see rules in Gaelic games, no barging as an example. You can tweak the rules of rugby so that there has to be an onus on the ball carrier to prevent head contact as well, and I think that's going to make a real impact if that does come in.
Jordy, anything you'd change?
No, I think it's great.
Good lad, well done. Well done. Andrew, nothing for you either. Mads, you were on your own, but fair play.
A few other changes I can make as well.
They're laws, not rules, they're laws. Okay, quick one for you. The player that you most disliked playing against. Not the player that you disliked the most. Don't want to know about that. Well, I do, but after on a pint. The player you most disliked playing against because they were just everything you didn't want to face on a Saturday afternoon or evening. Ian.
Peter O'Mahony was the under-20s captain when I was under 20, and he was great leader. But playing against him, he'd be coming for you off the back of a line out, off the side of the scrum. If he did manage to tackle you, you'd know all about it on the ground. And he was also as well, I had the ultimate respect for him. He was a guy who I wanted to impress even when I was playing against him. But any time I played against him, you knew all about it. So
I'd say you had a few things to say about your haircuts as well. Jordy.
Another Munster man, Paul O'Connell. I got to play him 3 or 4 times, and he was just horrendous to play against. Just knees and elbows everywhere, and he kind of got away with it just till he lasted an extra couple of years to Leo, but he was one of those ruck wreckers where he just went in booting everyone that was anywhere near him. So I didn't really enjoy playing against Paulie, and. I have a second one, which was actually someone I played with, was Dev Toner. I didn't really like playing with Dev. He was great. As long as he was on the other side of the pitch, but he managed to break my hand while I was playing with him once. I went to tackle someone and Dev came in late and kneed me in the hand. So, there's your two.
Andrew.
I'm going to kind of mix the two questions, the one you're going to say you're going to ask us after and the one you actually asked. James Lowe. Me and James Lowe had a serious issue for a while, and I've subsequently got to know him in camp, and he's actually an absolute gentleman. But playing against him, the man does not stop talking from the start of the match to the end of the match. And he's playing on a ridiculously good Leinster team, so most of the time you're getting turned around under the post and he's jabbing at you. And he's obviously a class player as well. So I really disliked him for a long time. And he knows that. I'm not revealing any secrets here. But I have a lot of respect for him now and enjoy playing with him.
Very good. Okay, anybody else on the floor got a quick question? I'm going to go to the back because I've got to keep an eye on time here. Don't want to go too long, moving quickly as I can. Here we go.
Thanks, Ryle. Lads, just in terms of your retirement planning, just wondering if any of you have any interest in coming down to a junior club called Port Arlington to get a game.
Very good. Right.
I've been advised to retire with immediate effect. I always haven't. So
I'm unfortunately tied in with Blackrock College or FC, so.
Ian Madigan has the most caps by 1. He has 31 and the two lads both have 30 each. Yeah. So there you go. Okay, final thing. Let's have a quick word on tomorrow. I'm going to leave you to last, Andrew. Mads, tomorrow, game live on Premier Sports, by the way. Alan Quinlan, Ian Madigan, Andy Dunn. Okay, Ian, tomorrow, who do you fancy? And why? Loaded, but if you haven't seen the teams are loaded. James Lowe missing for Leinster and Peter O'Mahony missing for Munster. But outside of that, pretty much the best that everybody can do right now. What's your sense?
Yeah, and it's as I said earlier, it's great to have this rivalry back. You know, it's like an old school Irish trial, and that's the way, you know, I always treated those inter-pro matches. They're the games you want to play in. Everyone's watching them, as opposed to, you saw, you know, Leinster Scarlets last week. It doesn't exactly get the blood flowing. But yeah, for tomorrow, look, the way the game has gone now, the scrum is so dominant. Last week against the Stormers, Munster's scrum really struggled. If that's the case again tomorrow, Leinster are going to probably win by about 20 points, I'd imagine. If Munster can get parity there, which I hope they do, and we can see a genuine good rugby match and see the likes of Ross Byrne and Jack Crowley come up against each other, then I think it could go down to the wire. But I think Leinster at home, I'd say at least 10 points.
Ooh, okay, nice jacket, by the way. Jordy?
Yeah, I wouldn't be too far off that score prediction, I'd say. I'd say there'd be a lot of bad blood after last year, especially a lot of the guys playing tomorrow for Leinster anyway wouldn't have played in that semi-final last year, and I think probably Leinster have probably learnt their lesson in not playing their best team against Munster when it comes to big games. And yeah, I don't know, I just think with a packed out Aviva and the team that they're playing, like, look, no disrespect to Munster, I think they're a really, really strong side, but I still think they might be a season or two away from getting the win down here.
Yeah, great to hear that it's a sellout. Go on then, back your men in red. We're going to have an outreach programme, by the way, where we bring him back, turn him blue again.
I'm not coming back.
Good on you.
It's tough to beat Leinster Dublin. There's no point in sugarcoating that. The only team, as far as I can remember, La Rochelle, that have, you know, done a job on Leinster in the last few years. Unlucky boys. I wasn't up for La Rochelle at all that day.
Just as well we're shutting this down. Come on.
So it's going to be tough. I think Mads, you know, talking technically about the scrum, is spot on. Munster need big performances from big players. Obviously, we're missing Pete. We got Jack Crowley now, who's probably the form 10 in the country and is, you know, next in line for the jersey. If Munster gets some big performances in key positions, we're right in the mix. But it's going to be a tough match.
Sure is. It's been an absolute pleasure. It really has. Folks, thank you. Genuinely, I've been in a lot of rooms with this number of people and it hasn't gone quite as well. So thank you for staying with us. Thank you for a great afternoon. I've been asked to say on behalf of the President and the committee, that's the end of the formalities. Go forth, enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you to Andrew, to Geordie, and to Ian. Thank you very much.
Everyone was saying